Want.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you are here and you have some questions, and you're on YouTube, you can see a little link down below, and you can click and go to. You can actually get over into YouTube. And sorry, it's really hard to do what I do here because when I do this open, because what happens now that I'm on time is I hear myself like about 50% of the time. I hear myself back from YouTube when it pops up, and 50% of the time you don't. So you don't have any like I don't understand what it just changes its mind every single time. Anyway, if you're watching, you can join Zoom by clicking on the link. If you click on the Zoom link in the link in Zoom, you'll get to Mukana. You can ask questions there, and that's it. This is our evening show. It's a little less formal, a little looser than the morning show, but not much. No second hour. We just answer questions. So if you have questions, go to Mukana. Ask those questions early, as opposed to asking them in the last 15 minutes. It's easier for us to manage the time if we see them early and you vote on them early, sort them for us. You really are the producers as the viewer. You're producing the show with your questions. So definitely do that. If you want to be here and be in the show, just get here a little early. 6:10 is when we start doing mic checks. We're a little looser. I don't think we'll be loose for much longer about when you can come in for the mic checks. So we'll start cutting off pretty hard at 6:13 the way we have in the past. So just know that that's coming down the road. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Real quick, just as a note, I'll put it into Mukana. There's a link. Here's a link to. I finally finished that article that I've been promising. So the article's out on Twitter. I put the Twitter link in. My request, if you like the article, or even if you just want to help, is to retweet it. So just retweet it or like it. You don't have to retweet it if you don't want to, but you can like it. It's kind of an experiment in what we call social swarming. So by if a lot of people retweet something or like it, it's just kind of to see where it goes, see how much trouble we can cause. So anyway, so if you feel like it, go ahead and also if you like it on Medium, if you like the article. If you don't like the article, don't like it either. But check it out. It's all about Zoom. It was my response to Stanford's crazy research. So it's so funny. Bob Smith, who was here, they're doing so much great stuff in one part of the building and doing so many crazy things in the other part of the building. It's a typical, every organization has a. So it's not. I don't want to paint Stanford as much as it was kind of a. Everyone's trying. Anyway, Bill, let's jump to the questions.
Okay, the first one comes from the Seventh Seal in Brooklyn, New York. Hey guys, Seventh Scroll. I'm sorry, I said Seventh Seal, Seventh Scroll, not the Bergman movie. Mike here. We have an Atem ISO and are strongly considering your recommendations of using an Apple TV as an input for other devices. Do you think it's worth purchasing an Apple TV 4K in 2021, or is it worth waiting for an update to the pipeline?
Go ahead, TJ.
I would say yes. If you have a need for an Apple TV, get the Apple TV and fill your need for it. And Alex going to get the con.
I will say that if you're just trying to use it as a connection for a 1080p connection, you don't even need a new one. You can get an old one and find something on eBay for not very much money. It'll work just fine because all you're doing is doing a quick connect and share, and you don't need 4K. But otherwise, it's great. I mean, I like my 4K one Apple TV, but you don't need it. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. Also, when you go into the Apple store, because this just happened for my condo in Vegas, we went in and I said I want the 4K, and when I got home I realized they'd given me the standard HD. It's $30 less if you don't need 4K, so you can save a little bit of money. Otherwise, I don't see any problem buying the 4K today.
And it really is if you're connecting Apple devices. There's other stuff out there that will connect a lot of other devices as well. Go ahead, Joshua.
If you do really want to have the 4K, the Mac Rumors Buyer's Guide says it has been 1,278 days since it has been updated. So you might want to hold off if you have to have the 4K.
My guess is there'll be a new something probably in the next 6 months. Is probably a pretty good guess at this point that we're going to see some kind of rev. We haven't seen it in a long time. And there was even I think at WWDC a long while ago, there was a whole bunch of designs that were oddly Apple TV-esque, and then they never nothing ever happened. So it's interesting to see. I think that something's got to happen soon. So we'll see how that goes. All right, next question.
Jason Panks in Nashville, Tennessee says, will Amazon Echo show 8 as a Zoom room, bump a meeting to 720p? If not, then any other suggestions for getting the bump?
Go ahead, Peter, and then Steve.
Yeah, the catch is you have to be on the most current, newest rev version of the 8. Yeah, Alexa 8-inch one. I have both in my house. The one downstairs will not do Zoom. The one sitting within arm's reach does do Zoom.
And when it does, it bumps.
And it bumps. Guy and I tested this out in January, which is when they first started turning it on. I mean, I could turn it on. I don't need to do it for this show, but I have used it in other meetings where I've turned it on just to get the bump.
Steve? Nope. Are you there, Steve? Steve might have frozen. Go ahead, Grant.
He looks very
I was just going to add that there isn't any any difference really in the Zoom rooms and all of the portals and the Amazon devices. As far as that software goes, all of them will push to 720, even though you've got this tiny screen. It's kind of funny that these little screens that, well, you could see 720 on them, but they're not benefiting a lot from it.
Yeah.
But they are pushing it to 720.
Go ahead, Peter.
Like I said, the only catch was you have to be on, at least for the Alexa, you have to be on the most current rev. Otherwise, it just won't load. It treats it like a Zoom phone call, believe it or not. Because that's what happened. I was testing it out on the pre-show a few times, and I kept coming in as a phone call.
Right. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, Grant basically said it, but to be explicit, a lot of us have been using Facebook portals when we need them, and those have worked pretty well. Usually there's an 8 and 10-inch one, but you can also, for testing, run Zoom rooms on your own computer as well. And it is going to cost something, but you have a trial that you can use that works pretty well for that too.
Next question.
Mark Harder of Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn says, can't wait to get my instances approved by Amazon Web Services. Couldn't be there on Saturday. Tried Sunday at 11 a.m. and I'm still waiting for the instances to be approved. I have gotten my request assigned to someone, but no love so far. Did anyone have a much faster first approval? And are there any instances I can fire up without G?
I've never seen it take that long. I guess over a weekend, maybe. Go ahead, Tucker.
Yeah, they're also pretty busy right now. They're getting hit with a lot more requests than I think normal. And it's not unusual if you just created an account and then immediately request G instances. It's not unusual at all for them to kind of slow that down just a little bit. So yeah, and as far as other instance types, go to that limits section and take a look at what you do have access to. There will definitely be some instances. Usually you'll have 16 or 32 vCPUs in non-graphics processor instances that you can play around with.
I've also, I had to build a couple instances in the fall, and I was in a rush. And I pushed it by doing a service ticket really nicely, but just pushed a service ticket to them saying, hey, I'm doing this thing, and it'd be really, something that's important. A lot of times that'll push you to the top of the heap. As long as it's not nice, not, hey, where's my server? But something nice that goes into the service ticket. Definitely it happened within an hour or two after I did that. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, the thing to keep in mind is that they're trying to keep out the malicious actors. A lot of people are signing up for accounts, and they're asking for these advanced instances so that they can do malicious attacks or spam. And really what they're doing is making sure a human is behind it or a company that's legitimate.
Yeah. Michael?
Yeah, just say, make sure that everything that you need in your account that they could ask for is already there. Because, when they ask for information, they will double check and make sure that the pieces are there. If you can't get the instance that you need right away, with some exceptions, most of the time you can start with another instance and transfer your file system over to a new one. And so you can get started setting things up, installing things, practicing, and then just move that data over when you have the hardware that you need. So you don't necessarily have to wait to try something out.
That's great. Next question.
Ray Franklin of Mount Dora says, the A to Z macro pack has blank Stream Deck buttons marked $NA. What am I to do with that? Thanks.
I don't know what the A to Z macro pack is.
I was trying to decode it in my brain and nothing popped up.
They're a YouTube channel that's doing production videos. I don't know about the macro pack other than they have made it available to subscribers on their channel.
Yeah, you might have to give us more information. I couldn't even find it when I did the search, so I'm not sure what the what an A to Z Mac. Oh, go ahead, John.
I haven't heard that. I'm just speculating that the $NA sounds like a placeholder, so it may just be a blank button that they've put a placeholder for.
Mm-hmm. Next question.
Philip Tesoro of Brisbane, Australia says the Snyder Cut drops this week. For any of you with experience in features, do you see the success failure of this release to be an indicator of something like this happening again in the future, or never happening again if it doesn't at least recoup? And he's referring to, of course, the Justice League movie.
Those director's cuts have been going on for a long time, so it's kind of a fun business model. It's kind of a way to go back and get the people who were really into what you did to buy it again. So and so I think usually it's a pretty good business model. It's usually not the real cost of making the movies. A lot of times is the production itself. Doing the post production from a scale perspective of, we're going to add some more clips back in. Now the thing is how many effects they had to do. That's where we're going to add visual effects to it. So a lot of director's cuts don't usually cut in a ton of new things that would require visual effects to be added. They're more of the emotional moments, but it's hard to say with a Snyder Cut what will happen. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Go ahead, Peter, and then Bill.
I follow Kevin Smith, and of course he's a huge comic book nerd, and he's already watched it. And the thing is 4 hours. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Warner Brothers spent $70 million in additional special effects.
Wow. There you
and
go.
Allegedly from the first reviews is the vision Zack Snyder had was totally different from what we saw in the theater.
Yeah. I mean, 4 hours, $70 million. Yeah. This will be a thing, but it's going direct, right? It's a direct to the
It drops
channel.
on Thursday. There's an 8 o'clock, I think Pacific time, interview with Kevin Smith and Zack Snyder, and then it just dovetails into the movie.
That's great. That's great.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. 4 hours. Anyway, Bill.
Yeah, if there's that much new content, I can see the justification for it. What I was hoping it wasn't is they just didn't do a self-indulgent cut that was 4 hours long, and then they had test audiences. They also said it's 2 hours long. They cut all that stuff out, and then they bring the stuff back and make it the director's cut.
This one's a pretty good.
If it's
it sounds
new
like a pretty,
content, then I'm all for it.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, Bill. The thing is, they had multiple directors, and it showed in the final production of Justice League. And according to the reviewers, this is just Snyder, nobody else.
Yeah. So maybe we will talk about it a little bit on Friday after it's dropping Thursday. You said Thursday night, Peter?
Thursday is my understanding. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe someone will bring it up. We have something else we have AWS on Friday, but sometime in the first hour, if someone brings up the Snyder Cut, maybe we can talk about it. Go ahead, John.
Don't you have a 1 week moratorium on new releases?
Oh, that's right. We can't talk about it for a week. You're right. So it'll be a week from Friday. A week from no pressure. You have to watch it Thursday night. Everyone will be tired, because it'll be like, oh my gosh, you're killing me. All right, next question.
Keenan Campbell of Princeton, Illinois says Zoom fatigue is like skiing in jeans. I'm going to borrow this quote for emergency preparedness talks. Now, I came out of Arizona and skiing in Sunrise, and we used to ski in jeans. I'm just saying.
It was one of those things.
But
the metaphor worked at MacBreak, and it came out of my mouth. I hadn't even thought of it. It just kind of came out.
It's a good metaphor. I stand behind it, but I'm just saying.
So, yeah, and I just stuck, and I couldn't think of a better way to say it. Of just that. So much. In general, one of the things that I was responding to someone on Twitter about was they were like, well, maybe meetings are fatiguing. And I said, pretty much anything you do that is not something that you love to do is fatiguing. Now, sometimes it's necessary, but it's fatiguing because there's fatigue, I think oftentimes comes from either just not enough data or internal resistance, internal resistance to whatever you're doing, or, it's less about the doingness of it but it's more about how you feel about the doingness of it is what oftentimes becomes fatiguing. And so, What I'm going to get into a lot in the second article that'll come out later this week, hopefully, or early next week, is just reducing signal to noise ratio, which I talked about a little bit in the article, but it's all going to be about audio signal to noise, internet signal to noise, camera signal to noise. It's all signal to noise. Like just get rid of, as you improve that signal to noise ratio, it's just easier to, and then just skills, just having the skill sets. Everybody loves doing things that they're good at and they don't like doing things that they're not good at. That's just like the nature of that is the essence of humanity. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, I just think it's dangerous to have this term thrown around now, because we don't have it I went for a walk and I had walking fatigue. It was like it's expected. I went for a run. It was run fatigue, but because I said about ballroom fatigue or boardroom fatigue, it's not something that we have. So the venue is not the problem.
Right.
And this is the same. Often we're talking about the Zoom is the venue. This is the tool that we're using. Fatigue is going to happen or not happen based on the content and the level of interaction that you have.
That's great. Great point. Next question.
Yeah. David Brady, New York, says, what is the cause of NDI Hulk mode and what can be done to correct it?
Do we know what the cause is?
I don't think any.
I don't know if we know what the cause. I think we know how to fix it, but we don't know how to cause. We don't know what the cause is. Go ahead, Jeffrey, and then Michael.
I think it's just a ramp up of the audio and the video coming into play. Actually, I've reloaded my NDI, and I have, knock on wood, haven't had Hulk mode happen. I've had a black screen for a quick second, but that's it. But I think it's just a ramp up of audio and video.
You go ahead, Michael, and then Jason.
I know on a call a few weeks ago, Ben had pointed out that when you change someone's resolution in Zoom, when you go from either like a gallery view to speaker view and it up-reses their video feed, that can be one of the things that will cause it. It was pretty reliable, but I'm not sure it's 100% the cause.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yep. My question is, what do you mean by Hulk mode? I haven't heard that term before.
It's when so we don't see it as often now, but generally there'll be a handful of people that are using NDI, and when using NDI, what it appears to be is it swaps the channels from YUV to RGB or vice versa. So the way it interprets the video in the system is a swap between those, and when you do that, you end up looking green and pink as opposed mostly green, so hence Hulk mode. Unfortunately, it doesn't make us look really muscular, which would be really awesome. Anyway, but it just makes us look green. We get the green part without the good part. So anyway, it's some kind of interpretation of the color space in NDI that suddenly flips. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, when we call it NDI, I don't want to tar them with a bad brush, because I used to get the same effect when I was dubbing old VHS tapes through a Blackmagic video recorder dongle into a digitization system. So it comes up in a variety of circumstances, but it's something that's happening, and it happens on office hours when somebody's on NDI.
Yep, but Tucker?
I have heard, and this is just a one-time pass, so there's probably more context needed, but I've heard that the video rendering method, when you go into the video settings and go to advanced, the video rendering method, I've heard is switching from auto to one of the preferred video renderers. I've heard solves it, but again, not an experience I have.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem. Steve, did you have anything to add there? Or were you asking what
I
you were
didn't.
talking
No,
about?
I was going to ask what is Hulk mode, because I hadn't heard the term before, and Jason beat me to it.
It's in the morning sessions it's been dealt with many times, and usually we just usually tell people you're in Hulk mode. All right, next question.
I feel bad. I should have captured it at some point, because it's real distinct. Once you see it, you never miss it. Eddie Scott of Mission Viejo, California says, what's the correct procedure for throwing the ball down the field and pinning our ears back, all the while keeping our elbows in? It's the funky chicken we've just described.
Yeah, no, I definitely have things that I like to say. So, and I think they make sense. Do they make sense to everyone, throwing the ball down the field? I mean, we talk a lot about, when hosting, we talk a lot about throwing the ball to the receiver, and that can be anything, or to someone who's going there. It's just that you want to throw it. You see us do it here, where we're calling on people and not just going, okay, like literally this entire thing wouldn't work if I just said, so what do you guys think? Like every question, if I just said, so what do we think? And there'd be like this weird, like everyone talking over top of each other and everything else, and it wouldn't feel like a show. And that's why we have this kind of more direct thing. And then keeping the elbows in is really a wrestler term. So it's just a matter, if you put your elbows out, you get thrown. That's like if you're wrestling with any wrestler that's remotely good and you get your elbows out, you're in trouble. So we talk a lot about being conservative. Steve and then John.
Yeah, it's also important when you're hosting a show, something like this, that throwing the ball down the field sometimes requires you to take the ball first. So if somebody is rambling and you need to get it, just interrupting somebody to agree with them, reiterate their point, and then pivot mid-sentence to, that's a great idea. Alex, what do you think?
Well, a lot of people give...
So it's both. It's taking and throwing.
And a lot of people will complain. They'll go, I can't believe that you let Leo cut you off. I'm like, that's his job. His job is to cut me off. My job is to, the host's job is to pull things out of people when they haven't said enough about whatever the subject is, because they have skipped over things that are important, and to cut them off when they're saying too much. So I'm better at pulling stuff out than I am cutting off, but I'm getting there. Go ahead, John.
So for me, when you say keep the elbows down, I don't have a wrestling background, but I got a photography background. So for me, it's keeping things steady, keeping things stable, because I'm putting in my elbows to hold the camera lens.
It's good.
Slow down.
It's probably a nicer version of it than my version. Next question.
Idioms. Everybody has idioms. Those are good ones. David Brady of New York says, Zoom Rooms Digital Signage Edition does not burn a room license in the enterprise. Do you know if it will do the resolution bump when invited to a meeting?
I don't know. The Digital Signage Edition does not burn a room license.
Don't all Zoom rooms bump resolution?
I think it does. I mean, because it seems to be relatively easy because even the portal will do it. But I don't know what the digital signage. I think David. I think you might have stumped us.
Grant has his hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Grant.
There is a version that is literally just the digital signage element of Zoom Rooms. You can't initiate a meeting from it. It's designed to be able to put on the outside of a conference room, and so it'll show you what the schedule is of that room. And you can also play videos and digital signage. You can play ads and things like that, and then it can come back to the schedule and it can show the weather. It's a very, very basic digital signage system, but it's built into Zoom Rooms and can work really well. But yeah, it's not.
But it can't join anything.
No,
right.
Not when it's in that mode.
Okay, so that's why it doesn't burn up.
It doesn't burn a license because it doesn't do it.
Right. It's not. It's interesting though. It's a. Yeah, I now I can visualize the feature at places I've been. I just didn't know what it was. Next question.
Bruce Tambling of San Jose says, Mukana is amazing. Is this a custom development, or could I use this for my college Zoom webinar meetings?
Working on it. It's expensive right now because we kind of hand code. I mean, we wrote it. I mean, or I didn't write anything. I just complained to Chris, but Chris writes it, and we've been working on it for the last 4 or 5 years. So this is about the 4th generation of question systems that I've worked on. They've gotten progressively better. We do customize it for events. So we have one coming up this week that we're building a bunch of new tools for. So it lets us learn some stuff, but it's not something that is not yet self-administrating. So it's just like we have to do something every time you want to use it. So we're working on getting that solved this spring. So we've been working on it for a while, I admit. The problem we have now is that we started providing it as a service, mostly to keep paying for Chris, we started providing it as a service to folks, and now we're doing so much customization that we haven't had time to do the other parts that would make it easier to scale. So we're kind of in an in between, but I think that we hope to have it pretty soon. We keep on edging that way down, but then we also keep on adding features, and so it's this typical problem. But eventually, it's just the front end that's missing. Otherwise, it works really well. Just the ability for you to create an event is the part that we're still working on. Next question.
Andy Dolph of Durham, New Hampshire says, looking for a recommendation for a timer I can run centrally that remote presenters can all see on their phones. Any suggestions?
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, actually, this question came up over the weekend, and it was a application. It's Mac only that best I could figure out, called Stage Timer, and there's a client that runs on the Mac, and I've actually tested it. John Pruitt will shoot me because I opened a port up on my firewall for it, but I did test it with a colleague who was on the other side of the country, and on his iPhone he could see the time. I could control the timers.
That's
and
great.
He could see them.
Joshua,
there's also a version that they
sorry.
sell which gives you access to timers in the to relay servers in the cloud.
Oh, that's cool. Yep. Joshua,
if it's excuse me, if it's just basic time of day and they just need a clock, you could just have everybody pull up time.gov and have the atomic clock.
Or time.is. Time.is is kind of a pretty version of that. Go ahead, Grant.
Yeah, there's a really cool web-based version of it's called stagetimer.io. If you go to that, it's completely free and it's designed for exactly what you're talking about. So you have a controller and then you send the viewer link to as many people as you like, and they see a countdown timer, and you can send messages and do the whole typical stage timer thing. Works great.
Go ahead, Michael. Can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. I hit screen sharing. There's a similar tool called chronograph.io, which also gives you a pretty little timer and a share link at the bottom. Works pretty much, I think, the same as others. I don't know if it has any particularly special features, but it's easy.
By the way, for everyone watching, if you don't ask more questions, we're going to have to come up with something else to talk about. We'll just start making stuff up. We're really good at it. But if you have questions, this is a good time to go ahead and ask them. All right, let's go to the next question.
Bruce Tambling, San Jose. Can you please tell us what your plans are with Clubhouse?
I have no idea. I'm still playing with it. We're the problem is that we've been doing this for a long time, and what I've learned is to not ignore things. There's two reasons for it from my perspective. One is eventually we have a client that says, "Hey, we want to use this," and I don't like getting caught flat-footed. Like, oh, I got to figure out how this thing works. So I find the easiest way for me to learn it is to do it and to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what's the language of that group, of that new platform, and also to build up a little bit of a following, because it's really hard to test things. Like, I haven't bothered to fill. I had a whole bunch of TikTok stuff I had to do with live streaming and everything else, but you have to have a certain number of people following you to be able to live stream on TikTok. So I haven't bothered to build mine up that way because I was using other people's accounts. Now I can't test it because I don't have enough people. So usually building up enough followers means that you can get access to things and that maybe have its own limits. So I've learned, again, to jump in early, make sure I stake my name. That's the big thing, is when you see a new social network, you'll notice that I have Alex Lindsay on most social things because I usually get in pretty quick. I just put my name in. Like Instagram, I don't think I posted a single thing to Instagram for 5 years, but first day out, or very, very close to it, I got my name. So it's something to kind of think about. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, it's a gold rush. Wait till they open Android. When Android opens, it's going to break, the dam's going to break loose. And the rules keep changing. And how do you multicast, using Restream? You can't really do it because the rules are that you can't record anything. You really can't rebroadcast anything. So it's so evanescent. It's so ephemeral.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that we tested for a little while, and I just need to kind of get my head around it, and we'll probably do more of it, is there's no rule that I know of that precludes me from streaming into Clubhouse. And so, we may go back to, we did a couple of these a couple of weeks ago as I started to play with it, and we may do more of that, where we take our show every day and just push it into Clubhouse and people can listen to it.
Yeah, you could do that because you can block everyone from coming up to the main stage. They have this main stage that you promote people to. And if you just don't promote people, you can just stream your content to there. Exactly.
So, and I know it's not really following in the spirit of it. So that's why I haven't done too much of it, at least to begin with. But it is something we tested pretty early on to see if it would work, and it works great. Taylor?
I was gonna say, if you just want to do an audio only stream, you should imitate Leo a little bit and get yourself an audio only stream like on TuneIn and stuff like that. If you want
Well, we
audio
have it.
only,
You can actually, if you go to our clients for Mukana, you can actually click on it and you'll listen to it. It's on SoundCloud right now. I need to get a better solution than SoundCloud, but it works right now. So I'm not.
oh, okay.
It's not getting to the audio that's hard. It's just whether people might want to listen to it in Clubhouse. Go ahead, Jan.
I don't quite understand the whole concept of Clubhouse. Every time I go in there, it always seems like it's a bunch of people just bloviating, and I never get anything really out of it. So why would people not want to stream podcasts? I mean, really, what is the difference?
Well,
if you're not on the stage, and you're not going to get on the stage if you don't know the people who are up on the stage, what's the purpose?
Go ahead,
I don't
Steve.
get the purpose of Clubhouse.
Yep, Steve.
So it works a lot better than if you were just streaming a podcast, because if you were streaming a podcast with 10 people on stage, it could be difficult. But the key to Clubhouse is the moderation. So I've been in rooms where it's literally like the old, group calls when you were a kid, where you dial a phone number and hear 40 people from across the country all talking at once. But when it's moderated well, you're getting information, I think, that you wouldn't get from a podcast because of kind of like office hours in a way, the live interaction. Renee Ritchie does some stuff on YouTube with some of the people from Standard, where they'll just discuss pros and cons of doing different things on YouTube. That is invaluable information, and you're not going to find it in any podcast nowadays because it's so stream of consciousness. But again, it all depends on the moderation.
There's a freedom that when you're not recording or you're not expected to record that you have to talk. It's why we don't stream all of office hours. So we have the pre-show, the pre-show, and the pre-show and the post-show. So there's out of the 5 hours that happens with office hours every day, only 2 hours goes to YouTube. And the reason we do that is because it's a more comfortable conversation and it's more free flowing. And I have to. What's interesting is in the pre-show, the 5 a.m. show, is that it's almost an entirely different group of people. Like it's just this whole other little world that exists at 5 a.m. that doesn't exist anywhere else. And then they leave and new ones come in, and it's a much different conversation than this show, because this one is really next question. That one will chew on something the whole time, just one subject for the whole pre-show, and then the post show is always just us kind of whatever we didn't cover during the show. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's for me yet, but I think when we compare it to podcasts as well, it really depends on the kinds of podcasts that you listen to. Because things like Mac Break Weekly and the Twitch shows and a lot of the Mac community tech shows versus the NPR side are very different shows. And to me, it's a little bit more like an audio version of office hours. And I like the recorded medium because I can speed it up and I can listen to it on my own time. But there is something to be said if I'm going to be there and participate. I mean, that's why I'm here, because I think it's fun to contribute in that way. So there's a personal preference to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mickey?
Yeah, that's interesting that Michael brought that up. That's exactly how I've been treating Clubhouse. It's like a podcast, but if I wanted to, I can jump in and interact. And it's also an additional layer of fun is that it's usually people that I know oftentimes.
It was funny. I before our Clubhouse, because we're doing Clubhouse at 7:00 on Wednesdays, and it was funny. I while I was waiting, getting ready to do it, I saw, oh, there's a LiDAR one. So I jumped in and of course just couldn't help myself. I had to raise my hand. I was like, oh, I have some things to say. And it is interesting that you have this kind of interaction that you feel like you could be, to what Mickey's talking about. You feel like you could be, you're just listening, but then you're like, oh, I can add something to that conversation. And I think that the fact that you can do that it's even possible, creates more active listening than when you are just listening. It's the same thing of like call-in shows, on NPR or whatever in the morning. Those call-in shows, or even AM radio, you listen differently because you may not call in that day, but you could. You're listening to it like maybe I should call in and talk about that. And that possibility, kind of like the lottery, keeps you thinking about it more than you would if you were just listening passively. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, it's basically what you're saying is it's more organic because unlike morning radio, you know if you really wanted to that there's a chance you could interact with them. And just that little opening window that you might be able to participate changes your attention span.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I was going to say, I think I made the comment over the weekend. I said, the inverse can also be true. I was listening to you do your, and I'll use the word rant on Twit, and I kept trying to figure out how could I break in and add to the commentary, but I couldn't. So you get used to one model here,
Right.
and then all of a sudden you're back in your
you have expectations. Yeah, absolutely.
New watch only mode.
Yeah, John.
I found myself listening to you guys talk and raising my hand, and I wasn't on the show.
Right.
That's what Clubhouse is. You get to participate. It's you don't. It's.
I do think that what I would say is that participatory media is the future. I mean, I don't know if it's Clubhouse is the future, but what we're doing, what Clubhouse is doing, what other people are thinking about, is that the audience is part of the content. But truly part of the content. Not like, oh, we put up a tweet, every once in a while, but like they really are the content. And when you look at Twitch gamers, how much they're interacting with the audience and doing things like I was reading about what's her Maki, is it? I'm seeing now I'm going to show my age. I was just talking about this with Nick Justin yesterday. I can't think of her name at the moment, but she's a gamer, a game developer, and then she built a 3D suit, and she's anyway, so she just responds to the audience, and they can kill her. They can kill her on Twitch, on Twitch, and that's when she started making money. When people pay to kill her, but they pay to kill her avatar, not her, obviously. She's fine. She just disappears for a minute. But they're in. I don't know if that's necessarily a great way to do that, but it's working. she's paying her bills with it, and it really took off but it's them interacting, them being part of it. And a lot of the streams we've done that have been the most successful streams have always been the audience being part of the conversation. Jan, and then Paul.
You make Clubhouse sound like buying a $1 lottery ticket where the prize is, hundreds of thousands of dollars if you get that scratch.
But your chances are so much better than the lottery. Go ahead, Paul.
Clubhouse blew up today when Mark Cuban released an NFT, and then actually it was Elon Musk released an NFT, and then Mark Cuban released an NFT, and then those rooms blew up, hundreds and hundreds of people.
I just think it's funny though. It's like Clubhouse talking about NFT is like the biggest, the best example of a hype machine I've ever seen. It's a hyped platform talking about hyped goods. It's just
is this the Bitcoin of today that I'm missing out on, that I'm going to kick myself for in 10 years saying, why didn't I buy an NFT?
Yep, probably. Next question.
Peter Rosado of Las Vegas says, in Mac OS, would a QuickTime recording of a test Microsoft Teams meeting cause AV sync problems?
Yeah. We were talking about this the other day. QuickTime and AV sync don't go together. Bill, and then TJ, and then Peter.
Well, I'm not sure if it would cause it. I mean, I do a lot of screen scrapes lately, the past maybe 3 months, 4 months. I've been doing a series for a client of doing QuickTime recordings of Teams meetings. And it's coming out pretty faithfully. And by faithfully, I mean with the delay that the participants, and these are corporate people from various and sundry divisions all over the country, it's not going to clean up any of their delays. It's just going to grab what you have on your screen. But it does that for audio and video faithfully. So it's no reaching into the back end to make it better. But in terms of recording what you see, it'll do that just fine.
Go ahead, Peter, and then TJ.
I was going to agree with Bill. I mean, I even do that with a 2015 15-inch MacBook Pro, and it works just fine. But don't do anything else with that machine while you're doing it. It's just screen scraping the machine, is screen scraping the Teams session.
Yeah, TJ.
I did this very thing last week on a meeting with several hundred participants. There were no issues at all.
Now, one thing you may want to do is test what the actual offset is, and hit, do a slate or something like that from the other side, and just see, like, does that change? So the way I would test that would be again a slate with somebody on the other side of Teams, and you just close the slate, take the recording, take it, don't watch it on QuickTime, but take it into Final Cut and look at how far away, what's the offset. Then you start to, see it does that change, is it drifting, those types of things. Now, if you really want to get into testing, and one thing that I'm hoping to get at some point in here is there's the Hitomi Matchbox. We'll just tell you what your offset is. Like when you play it out, it just and that's what we used. Like when we really started getting sensitive about timing, that's what we used. Let's jump on to the next question. We got some questions stacking up now.
Fair enough. Michael Fraley of Dallas Fort Worth says, Alex, when are you going to get a theme song?
We have one. We're not using it right now. It was like a little, yeah. I haven't heard it for a while. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I kind of miss it.
So we used to close every show this way, and it I think that because we do it every single day, it felt like it was a little over the top for me. I tend to be kind of a low profile, and so it was like a little. I love the music. Victor Cajeo did the theme song, and I love it, and I think we'll bring it back at some point. But I think every day at the end was a little too much for me of just doing something like that. Go ahead, John, and then Tucker.
Maybe you can do it for the oddball shows like this one where you play it out for this, or like the 8-hour marathons.
Right.
Use it for those.
Maybe so. Yeah. Go ahead, Tucker.
I would just roulette every once in a while. Use it as your breakover when you come into the show to cover the in.
There you go. Next question.
Andrew Moyer of Oakville, Ontario, Canada says, what Arduino Atem projects were you thinking about doing?
Well, I mean, we just have to remember that all the calls that the software is making are available in the, that are available to us from an external client. So we could be basically doing anything with the Atem that we want to do. Now, what a lot of us do, like for instance, you could be receiving calls for tally. You could be create what we want. Some of the examples of stuff that we've done is create buttons that will cut or do something, go to another scene, cut away, do those kinds of things. And we build a button. You hit that one button, and we gave it to a client. We had a client that didn't want to. They wanted control. They said, if I hit this button, as an owner of a big football team, if I hit this button, I want the show, I want everything to mute, and I want the show to go to a still or something like that, of their logo, because I'm going to say something that I shouldn't say on air. And anyway, so we printed out this nice little button, and we put an Arduino in it, and we created this, it looked like the easy button that you saw at Target, except it was their logo, and it looked really gorgeous. And if they hit that button, immediately went away, and so those are the kinds of things, like being able to just add anything that you want to what you're doing is what's possible. The process of doing it, you can even shade cameras if you wanted to with the shield. Go ahead, Tucker.
Yeah, the tally one is actually one of the most useful because it gives you access to select tally from either ME, especially when you get into the 4 MEs. Being able to say, I want tally from your other MEs is super, super valuable.
Yeah.
So that's the first project that I did.
Yeah. Peter?
Just a point of clarification. It wasn't Target, it was Staples.
Oh, that's right. What was it? What did I say it was?
Target.
Staples. Oh, they're all the same in my head. They're all red and white. Go ahead, Michael. Did you have your hand up? No. You can't do that. See, you're lucky we weren't selling some. You're lucky we weren't auctioning off NFTs.
Okay, I was being bad. I was reading your article. I'm sorry.
I should have been sold for the NFT is sold for $150. All right. Anyway, next question.
David Brady of New York says, considering moving Vmix into the cloud at work, but up against IT InfoSec scrutiny, from a 20,000-foot view, how secure of an environment are we getting ourselves into? And note, they have a pretty beefy AWS infrastructure, but it's a block all, allow known type environment.
Go ahead, Tucker, and then John.
Yeah, I think in that situation, as far as how secure is it, it's as secure as you make it. And doing research and learning how to make it secure is really a big piece of it. Now, in production, we have certain things that make us inherently less secure. Where we have to accept unknown connections, like talking about people calling in. In most cases, I'll do what's called known host. So only things coming from my IP address can connect for remote desktop access and things like that. That's known host. And from there, the other thing that we're kind of managing is these instances are only powered up for Windows, and then they're shut off and they get new public IP addresses. So there's a little bit of security through obscurity, but it's definitely as secure as you want to make it. John, I think, is going to have some amazing things to say about it, though.
Go ahead, John.
Actually, Tucker, you got most of what I was going to bring up. The only other thing I would talk about is get them to get you a separate account. Put your instances in its own VLAN and its own account. That way you're not contaminating the rest of the corporate traffic. And that'll make it a lot more secure and safe. But Tucker's right. He got it done. He got everything right.
Go ahead, Taylor, and then Michael.
Yeah, and the next thing I'd say too, if you watch what ports and stuff you have open to the machine, and then be careful on your passwords and that type of stuff too, because somebody gets a hold of that random password or a password you created, that could result in some big trouble.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, what's been said is good. You can also consider, this probably wouldn't work for like incoming video feeds, but for controlling accessing, a lot of organizations will set up a single host environment that is the only sort of direct machine that can control one. And so you have an environment that is logged, audited, monitored, that is sort of the gateway in to either your instances, your VPC, any other traffic as sort of a router. And that can be a really good way to create one point where if something goes wrong, you at least have control and you have a place to start looking.
Yep. Next question.
Oh my gosh, it's Andy Carluccio from Washington, D.C. Regarding NDI, is there a smart way to get multiple NDI subscribers without saturating my network? I have a 4-camera system. I'm afraid to run a multi-view alongside Vmix. Is this where NDI multicast comes in?
Yeah, go ahead, Tucker.
NDI multicast can help in that situation. Another thing to do some research on, and I have not done all the research on it, but is NDI proxy streams. NDI does have a low resolution proxy version that's specifically for things like multi-viewers. That is, you can request it. You'll have to look into how to do that though.
Good, Mickey.
Yeah, from my understanding, multicast streams would help in terms of the machine that is actually sending out these streams, but not in terms of the network saturation coming into other machines. If you saturate that, it's still going to.
Yeah, go ahead, Tucker.
It would help because the switch is taking the load of doing the duplication. So from your primary machine, whichever machine has all 4 streams coming in, its pipe is going to get, well, no, you're absolutely right, because that pipe's going to get that no matter what. Well done.
Next question.
Dan Huber of Erie, Pennsylvania is up next with, I joined Saturday's Pi build only thinking I was going to see how it was going. I couldn't stop watching. That show really worked. My Pi PlayoutB is currently running, thinking of using it as an inexpensive digital signage player. So it's just an attaboy on the idea, I guess.
There's my, I haven't turned this off.
Are
Since,
are the Baratas ready yet?
They're not. They're still working on it. He's still heating up the pan. So yeah, I really felt like we turned some corner on Saturday from a content perspective, like a class perspective. And I'm not sure it'd be possible to do it any other way than it kind of felt like that's amazing, and no one would have been able to it would be very hard to pull that off without the 330 days together, because we have this camaraderie that we have because we see each other all the time, and there's this trust, and we're okay with learning in front of each other, and everyone's just trying to help each other, in that community. And we have a whole bunch of multi-camera systems. So what was really interesting is that what part of what made it work is that Mickey has all these things to cut to, because you get to see us all working, and then the mix of people who have some technical skills, some had already finished it, the developer, as well as people who are just getting started and have never even thought of doing anything like this. And I think that, I think a lot of us came out of it like wow, something just happened there. Like something really special came out of that day, and I'm still trying to like process how we're going to use it. Hey, Tony, what'd you think?
I just want to say, Tony Mobley using multicam to demonstrate him putting together a Raspberry Pi is amazing.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, it was so good. It was so good. It was like, it was, and the thing is, I was thinking, Tony, I've talked about you a lot over the weekend, because it was just like, when you started, it was like, should I use a webcam, and and now you got multi-camera, you're building your own playout systems. It's amazing. It really is. And it was really fun to have you there working with us on it. And you have it running, right? You got it rolling. It's right there.
It works. I don't have it connected because I still have to work on my wife on getting my Ethernet running in the living room. So.
Hey, just the way to do that is just say, hey, I could drill holes in the wall. That'll work too, Tucker.
TP-Link Powerline Ethernet. It will make your wife happy and it will get the job done. It is not the best solution, but it's better than Wi-Fi.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. John?
You don't need Wi-Fi for a PlayoutB. Ethernet, because it's not streaming over Wi-Fi. You're only using it for control, so it will work through with Wi-Fi. So Tony, you don't need her permission.
Go ahead, Dan.
And everyone was telling Jonas, oh, it would be great if it would do this. And I could tell he was like putting it all together.
Well, there's this, one of the things that's really hard as a developer is that and we have this, what really helps us with Mukana is all these new people looking at it and doing something that we didn't expect them to do, and then asking questions and why can't we do this and why can't we do that? And I think that for a developer, it's so powerful to be hanging out with the users, especially users that are just getting started, because there was a cliff of Jonas put something in that was a feature that turns out to be a user bug, which is that black screen. Like, he doesn't want to have something other than black showing up, and it's a totally valid reason to do that, except for the fact that all of us thought it was broken. Like, we missed the flash of the other things, and we were like, oh, doesn't come out, doesn't work. And I spent a bunch of time looking around. I was about to give up, and then someone says, oh, the black screen. I was like, oh, and what was interesting is that I didn't want to interrupt the flow, but I was learning that interrupting the flow was part of figuring this out, was us people just bringing up what was happening. I think there was a temptation, the normal way of doing it, if I don't want to pull the whole group down, but at the same time, it was working through those things that made it so powerful. Go ahead, Mickey, and then Talak.
Sorry, slight tangent. It's like, Tony, do you already have an Ethernet line going to your computer, your MacBook?
I do not have an Ethernet going to my MacBook. I have an extender, a Wi-Fi extender that is giving me about a third of the 900 up and down, but it only has 2 ports. So I have it connected to my Atem Mini and my Mac Mini. And those are the 2 devices that are getting the connection, which is around 300 up and down, which is not bad. But the
but you could put a switch on the end of that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like, if you just need communication between your computer and like other peripherals in the same location, then put a switch after that extender, and you should.
You got it all. We solved it. Solved. Talak.
I've been thinking a little bit about this just because I thought Saturday was amazing. I've said that a couple times, but I think that you end up with a third layer of content type. That we have the fast layer of in the show, where we're going from technical thing to technical thing to technical thing. Then we have the chewing on it in the pre and post shows, which is also fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have this other thing where we are working through something really technical, and I think it actually really adds to the whole thing.
It does, and we've already started restructuring other learning, because it's interesting to have it like the resolve stuff is kind of working, but I realized what would have really worked was for us to do the things that were in that tutorial together. We're not going to end up doing that for this one, but doing like the edit page, the color, like let's color something and let's all color it together. and we'll ask questions about this and show it and talk about it and so on and so forth. And I think that we'll end up doing some of those things. But like I already talked to Nick, and the way we're going to do Unreal, Nick's going to post some. We're going to start adding more to it, but Nick's going to post some videos ahead of time. Like, watch this, then do the. Then there'll be a little bit of an intro. It will answer questions right at the top of the hour for Unreal. Then he'll do a little demo of what to do. But then we're all going to spend at least an hour of the time just working on it and asking questions and going back and forth. And I think that that one was a long one, but I think that and the same thing I was thinking with AWS, it'd be fun at some point to do that, to do what Tucker showed us, and maybe even this Saturday, we'll see. But where we just have enough people, we just have to find enough people that can do it, answering that question. But we all just kind of work through it together. And there is something really powerful about everybody thinking about the same thing together. And the only thing we didn't do is we didn't really incorporate everyone not passively watching, but not in the panel, because I had accidentally turned off the question thing from the last hours. So what we'll do on the next ones coming forward is definitely do the same collaborative thing. And I think we're going to use this a lot, like this model, because it works really well. But if we add the videos so that you have a little prep before you get there, and we do a little bit of a demo of how to do it, and we do a little bit of there's open Q&A each week. So the stuff that came up in between the weeks can be addressed as well. Then we're all going to workshop it. I think that there's something really, really interesting about that model that we could learn a lot, and not just in physical. Like I want to do Arduino, but like Swift programming, Arduino, but also 3D modeling, 3D printing, 3D, and for people who don't have it or aren't ready to follow, just following along. It sounds like for Dan, just watching us was interesting as well. Like it wasn't, you didn't have to even be doing it. Go ahead, Tucker.
Yeah, this kind of loops us back to the conversation that was happening before sound check with Isadora and the training that kind of happened today with that. And it's really the challenge on the teacher with whatever it is, with products like AWS and Isadora and things like that, and Arduino, is picking things that are so open and can do so much, nailing that down and getting it to a place where it's like, but this is what we're going to do today.
Right.
That's a challenge.
And but even during that, when we all know what we're trying to do, but we can be talking in between. There's a lot of time of us doing other things. We can be talking about things while we're working on it and asking questions, and it kind of fills in those gaps. I know that I would have made it. I think I've told the story. I made a lot of bread a year ago, or a little over a year ago, because I was trying to learn how to do training, and I just used bread. Bread is something that all of us have, not all of us, but bread is something that the human race has been doing for 10,000 years. It's why we're here. It's why we have these computers, is because we figured out how to make bread. So anyway, so I find it to be one of the most basic technological skills. And so, but when you get started, there's all these words and there's explanations that you don't understand. And there's all this stuff that you had to put together. And I realized that making bread together would be really fun over Zoom, and gardening, building, there's all kinds of things that can be done in this environment. We just happen to tap on it. Now, again, we also have a group that really gets along, and we also have multi-camera. So there's a whole bunch of things that we have that other people don't have. But I think as far as the sharp end of the stick, really, bleeding edge kind of out in the front, I think it's a really interesting, showing the world what could happen, with it. So we'll keep on experimenting with it. Next question.
Seven Scrolls back from Brooklyn. Hey guys, do you use all of your inputs on an Atem Extreme? Mike from Brooklyn wants to know.
I wish I had 12.
I don't know if anybody, but yeah, Alex has.
I wish I had 12. I have the Extreme. I wish I had 12 inputs. 12 inputs would be perfect. 8 is just not quite enough. I've already filled them up, and I have things in my head that would go in there if I had more inputs. In fact, I'm thinking taking my
one
old
week
Atem.
if you have a 12 and you would instantly want 16.
16. Yeah. 16's right.
Yeah. Michael.
Yeah. The work expands to fill the time allotted. But I don't have my Extreme yet, but I do have the TV studio, which does have 8. And I just hit 8 for a workshop yesterday. So I thought I was going to maybe get rid of the TV studio, and I don't know if I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm keeping my other Atem because it's going to be the multi one that goes into the last one, so that I have 4 more inputs. Is kind of my thought right now. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I was just going to ask what your 8 are, because I've got a regular Atem, mini Pro ISO, and I'm not hitting 4 yet. I have the feeling I'll grow into it, but I'm curious what you're using for 8.
So in the wiring that I have right now, I don't have all of them running right now. I have them plugged in, but they're not all running at the moment. But I have this camera that's in front of me. Then I have a Telestrator input that so that I can do this right on my screen. So I have that. That's another computer that goes in. Then I have 2 more cameras, a wide camera that is set up here but not powered up right now. And then a close-up, I have another 6K right here that is like close-up on if you look at the video on the Arduino. So there's a total of 3 cameras in the Telestrator. That's my 4 inputs. Then I have a Keynote, 1 Mac Mini dedicated to Keynote, 1 Mac Mini dedicated to an app that I might want to do. So now I'm at 6. You can see how bad this gets quickly. And then Keynote that I want to have that can do web pages and then one wild one that can be whatever I want, whatever other things. Oh, and an Apple TV. So then I can just wirelessly grab something and connect it to it. And so that fills up. And the reason you want all those is because I want to be able to, if I'm teaching a class, I want to be able to go from my presentation to the application to Zoom or a web page. And I want to be able to just tap on a button and be in something else. I don't want to go in and out of a mode in a computer. I just want to tap on it. Now I'm in this mode. Now I'm going to tap on this, and I can go right back to where I was when I come back. And I want to be able to draw on top of it and have the multiple videos. And so that's why I have I fill up all those inputs.
Is there an instruction manual somewhere on the Telestrator? Because that I'd use.
I gotta get it finished. Yeah, no, it's just software. You can do it with any drawing app and a Wacom tablet. We've talked about it a little bit, but yeah, it's super useful. I'm trying to get it finished and get it out the door in the next month or so. So Paul and then Michael.
Yeah, Alex, you just need 2 3-port splitters and you've got it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you have other Atems. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I need that app because I tried to use the Telestrator earlier today during a lecture, and the whiteboard app I've been using has been a pain. And Wacom tablets with multiple, like the second computer is the trick there as well, because on your main computer, it gets messy. But yeah, my 8 are pretty similar to Alex's. I do have 2 monitors, and for teaching programming classes, it is really useful for me to swap between both those. So both those are going through decimators since I need them on this. And then the other thing I have is an SDI scan converter output, so I can grab an additional window easily without needing a second Mac. And that's what I use to do chat overlays from either like a Zoom chat or a website.
So, and Steve, this is what's going to kill you, is that when you show images like this, and then you can talk about lighting. This is the angles
workshop coming up at the start of April,
and this is coming down here
so bad.
Well, anyway, so that's the part that we'll talk. I'm trying to get I literally just need someone who's better at coding than I am to go and clean it up so that I can release it. That's literally all it is. It works fine. I just need to make sure that what I can't afford is to put it out there and have a one star because I forgot something. Now it doesn't work on half the computers, and that's the kind of thing I have to clean up. So that's what it's waiting for. So I'm working through it. It's been in the same state for 2 years. That's the worst part. It's just that I keep on going, I'm going to get to it. And now I'm finally have to get to it. All right, next question.
Andy Dolph of Durham, New Hampshire says, for cloud production, thoughts on production worthiness or reliability of Vmix versus OBS on either Windows or Linux?
Yeah, go ahead, Tucker.
Both of them will break if you ask them to do too much. Vmix has a longer kind of pedigree, and I think that I think Vmix is definitely above and beyond, especially it's a paid product versus a free open source thing.
Yeah, you have actually someone to call when it's not working. So I would go with Vmix if all things even between the two. Next question.
Roscoe Jones here in the panel says, when exactly are we celebrating the anniversary? We need to let the paper airplane flyover team know as soon as possible.
Wednesday. So Wednesday's the last day before we go to the new one. So it won't be
day after tomorrow, Wednesday, or a week from Wednesday?
A week from Wednesday.
Week from this Wednesday.
That'll be the 300. That's the 365th one.
The flyover team has to know exactly what hour, what minute, so that they go over the stadium at the right moment.
We should plan it at 8:00. 8:00 on the flyover team there. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Chris Myers, who's an old friend of mine, is going to be talking on Thursday about modular synthesizers. So he's going to be on the actual, like, I guess birthday, but Wednesday will be our. This is the end of the. I kind of like the idea of the birthday as the end of a year. Like we've completed the year, is rather than going into the next one. We're closing it up. We'll talk about looking back at it, looking forward. It'll just be the second hour will be that, but it's a week from Wednesday is the last day of the first year.
I was thinking about going back out and doing it from the voice booth, but I think it's too cold.
We need mission patches.
Yeah, there you go.
There's been some discussion about that. Go ahead, Talak. Yeah. So there's been some discussions about a variety of patches. So anyway, Grant.
Have you got the recording of the first day, the first meeting?
I think I do. I'll look back. I'll see if I can find it.
That would be cool. Even just the first 5 minutes of the show or something.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. I'll see if I can find it. Go ahead, John.
He's got a terabytes of recording. I'm sure it's there somewhere.
I don't know. There was a point where I pulled a bunch of them down and then I deleted them. So I don't think they go all the way back. And then I might have deleted it by accident again. It's like one of those things, like I just kind of put them in places. I wasn't thinking about it that much at the time. I'm not very good at old stuff. Like it's not what I'm known for. Like I tend to be all forward. Like I just keep moving forward and the old stuff kind of just drops off the back. And so so we'll see. Next question.
Shane Foley from Ashland, Oregon says, after the amazing AWS presentation by Tucker Guy and the 1F Jeff, I'm wondering whether it's at all possible to use the Chime SIP trunk connector to get PSTN calls in and out of a Vmix install running on an EC2 instance. Has anyone tried this, perhaps using NDI?
Yeah, go ahead, Tucker.
I've not tried it with Chime, but I have definitely had SIP calls in and out of various platforms on AWS.
And I want to also, I felt bad that I didn't acknowledge Chirag well enough on last Friday. I think he was really part of that team, right, Tucker? Yeah, and so, and if he's listening, I just apologize. I didn't know him, so he, like, all I knew were the three people that are here all the time, and he kind of became part of it, and he had great input. I was like, who is this guy? This guy came out of nowhere. Like, he just showed up, and look at this, but he was really part of that team. So I just want to acknowledge that he did a great job at adding a lot as an example. Yeah. Next question.
Bruce Tambling from San Jose says, have any of you used remote podcasting recording platforms like Riverside, Squadcast, Zencaster, and so forth? Although not true lossless audio quality, these definitely sound better than the Zoom audio codec and also create separate audio files for each panelist.
I've been on the receiving end of Squadcast, where I've been a participant in somebody else's podcast, and it worked seamlessly. It was like really, really great. It was just like we just had a conversation, and then it uploaded the file. And so anyway, that one seems to work great. That's the only one that I've actually used. But it was a seamless experience. Next question.
Oh, Steve.
Oh, sorry, Steve.
Steve's down
I
there.
missed you, Steve, down there.
Squadcast is kind of the gold standard from most of my experience. I use Zencaster with every episode of my podcast. The big problem with some of them is, like for me, where I've got a guest coming in over Zoom and I want all audio to be in sync and I'm monitoring over Zoom, the classic version of Zencaster lets you not use video, have no monitoring, and use your own VoIP system. They've recently changed to include video, and for a while were forcing you to use their VoIP, which caused issues doing an interview when you were listening over one but watching over another. They've kind of gone back on that now. You can turn that off, but the biggest problem I've had with Riverside and with Zencaster is periodically you'll get weird clicks and pops. If somebody changes a microphone, for example, they join with a built-in mic, but then change to a USB interface, and there is any kind of a sample rate mismatch, you'll get weird noises. But generally, Zencaster is a true double-ender and works fine.
That's great. Go ahead, Grant.
I would just add that, Zoom now with original audio, it sounds pretty good. Original audio is turned on, and then doing a local recording on your computer and selecting it that it will do individual recordings of every person, you've kind of got everything you want, and you're not asking for people to install anything special on their end or use anything special. It's just Zoom. It's pretty close. It wouldn't be as good, but it's very.
Yep. Steve?
Yeah, and when I record the Zoom audio as well, and I consider it my backup if I need, I try and use the better double ender audio if I can, but if I get issues, I use the Zoom audio. And if you throw, some EQ on it and a compressor, you can, and like you just said, like Grant just said, if you do the original audio, you can get fairly good sounding out of Zoom. It does require a little massaging, but you can do it.
I recommend a Neumann TLM 102 for everybody. Go 103, and then throw on a mix pre 32-bit float, double end. I think that's the only way to go. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway,
forgetting the Genelec monitors.
See, Steve, that was too much. Steve just froze. Oh, there we go. There he's back. Froze there for a
I'm
second.
having all kinds of internet issues tonight. I don't know what it is.
I think a lot of us are. All right, next question.
John Pewitt of Huntersville says, when are we done with Resolve? When we are done with Resolve training, what's the next thing?
Nick Jeshishin will be doing Unreal Engine. So that'll be the next 10 o'clock slot. And he'll have stuff that starts in April, and he'll have that week before he'll have a video up. We're working on specs that you need. We're trying to keep it so that you could use it on your Mac, which is just the only problem we had was the NDI inputs or video inputs from the Mac are a little dicey. So we're just going to use a video file because it'll be almost identical. It'll be building a digital set. So it'll just be kind of a very basic, what you've seen Nick show off a couple times. We're going to do the new version of our training, which is that there'll be some Q&A at the beginning, and then there'll be some workshopping together. And so I think that's going to be the next thing we take on. We're talking about Arduino projects coming up, as well as Swift programming, modeling, 3D modeling, other things like that, as well as we'll keep on playing with what we want to talk through. But there'll be a bunch of different bits and pieces. I'm trying to figure out whether we do them in series or parallel, which will take up everybody's Saturday. So I haven't just, I'm concerned about just overloading people with things they feel like they have to do, they don't want to miss out on. So I'm still working through whether we do 2 or 3 hour slots, multiple ones throughout the day. And I was like, well, people just choose what they want to come to, but they'll be like me. I want to do them all. Like I'll just, it'll just be like a long day because I'm like, I want to do the Arduino and the Swift and the Unreal and the, so I'm trying to figure out how to pace our time, to make that work. Go ahead, Steve.
I just have a request, and that is that you got the discount code on Resolve training from Ripple Training, and I'm considering the Ripple Training Final Cut training. I'd love a discount code if you could strike one for that.
Yeah. Well, and I want to go back to doing a Final Cut similar to Resolve as well. So I want to give the guys at Ripple a little bit of time. Also, one of the things with Resolve is I want to get into the color management. So I'm going to try to get Mark to come back and take the new color management that he's working on, have him have us go through that, because that's really what I'm trying to get out of Resolve is getting ready to do Vision and Atmos projects. So that's kind of where we're trying to get to. Next question.
Paul Edison Lamb asks, is there anything on the switcher horizon for educators who are locked into using USB cameras?
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, I played with that at the beginning before I gave up, but even Ecamm Live or Mimo Live, they can all do multiple camera inputs. But what's odd is you're almost getting ready to pay, if you actually want a licensed copy, you're almost going to pay as much as you are for an Atem.
Yeah, John.
So if you're on a budget, I use CamTwist quite successfully with multiple USB cameras, and that's free software that you can download and install.
It's been out forever. That's what we started with, was CamTwist, was our first little thing to use there. Tucker?
I would consider the $60 version of Vmix as a really good, it has a lot of tools. It's very mature, usual things that I always say. It's a really good solution for educators.
Yep. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, just, not necessarily on the horizon, but worth just mentioning OBS if you're on a PC, probably not on a Mac. But if you want free and you want to try things out, it's a good thing to get started.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I use OBS on a Mac. That's how I record my podcast, and I love it. I mean, it's open source, and so it's a little bit delayed in getting updates. So going to Big Sur might be a problem, but it's stable for me at least.
How do you connect multiple USB cameras though, so that you can switch them? And is it will a USB hub allow you to record, connect 3 or 4 cameras, and then use OBS or something to switch between them? Because we've always had a problem with. Pardon me?
I, for example, just using this, which was going through a cam link until I got my Atem Mini, now goes through an Atem Mini. I can do multiple cameras through the Atem Mini. But if I don't have the Atem Mini, like for example, the built-in camera or the other one, I can simply set as different video capture inputs. You could have 2 cam links on a Mac with no problem.
Yep. Peter and then Michael.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've done it on Windows, but a Mac doesn't care how many USB cameras. It's limited by the number of ports that you have. Now you can get some odd delays.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, because I've seen people use USB, 1 port to 6 port extenders, and they run into trouble a lot with sync and other things that I've seen.
Well, there's only so much bandwidth in the, the USB as well.
I mean, that was something I mentioned the other day. Is there is now a tool on a Mac Pro where you can see how much bandwidth the USB cards are using of PCIe.
Yep.
Pay attention.
Yeah, I was going to say with hubs, you have to be careful with the hub. But if you have, you have 1080p webcams that can deliver a fine signal over USB 2. So if you're not trying to push the limits, you have a hub, ideally one that takes in wall power, because that can make a difference in the sort of stability of the hub. You can have a good experience putting, I wouldn't max it out, but if you have a 6-port hub and you put 3 webcams on there, and it is a USB 3 connection, especially if it's a 10 gigabit connection and not a 5 gigabit one, you should be able to do this fine. I had a OWC dock, which was Thunderbolt, not USB, but it worked fine when I needed to do stuff like that.
Yep. Mickey and then Steve.
Yeah, just to build on what Michael was saying, as long as your host, the connection to the host is a fatter pipe, a larger pipe than what your cameras require, you should be in decent shape. Like say, if your cameras are USB 3.0, but you use a Thunderbolt hub, which runs at 40 gigabits, then you should be fine, generally speaking.
Good, Steve.
Mickey said what I was going to say, and that is if you use a Thunderbolt hub, you should be fine. But the other thing is, anything that's critical, avoid the hub. Even if you have to unplug it and plug everything direct into the Mac. But yeah, a Thunderbolt would be fine.
Next question.
Jason Parks from Nashville, Tennessee says, Panks, I looked at that wrong. Does anyone use Linux for production?
Yeah, go ahead, Tucker.
1F Jeff uses it quite a bit. I know Sienna runs on Linux. There's open source Playout. Casper CG runs on Linux. I know quite a few people use that still.
Yeah, go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, on the post-production side of things, there are a lot of rendering tools that run on Linux very, very efficiently compared to Windows.
And our encoders, our elemental encoders, are all Linux. So a little bit, that's one piece of the puzzle. Next question.
Chan Landy of Las Vegas here on the panel often. Is there a difference between Wi-Fi distribution, i.e. mesh Wi-Fi, Eero, Orbi, Google, versus standard hardwire routers when it comes to streaming with something like Zoom? And if you plug from a mesh station to a computer, does that make a difference?
The mesh is a disaster on so many levels. Like I have a mesh network in my house. I can't use it for anything that is at all useful. Like I can check email with it, but that's about it. And I'm planning to replace it all. I used to have multiple Wi-Fi APs, and that were all, each AP was hardwired back to the network, and it worked perfectly. And I ended up moving into a bigger house, and that house I couldn't reach in the same way, and there was not the right cables, and so I backed into a mesh network, and not one of my better moves. I can't even stream in it from over Wi-Fi. Michael and then Mickey.
Yeah, there's always going to be a difference between wireless and wired. And Wi-Fi, until we get to Wi-Fi 6 and some of the newer protocols, is typically talking to between 2 devices at a time on a channel, and it's just switching very rapidly because it can do that. So if you have a wire, you've got that additional bandwidth. If you're using something like an Eero, which has sort of an upstream port and a downstream port, that is a wired connection. It's not going to be messing with the Wi-Fi, and it's just about the power that device as a router can provide. And for the most part, in a home network, a mesh router as your centerpiece that has a wired connection, that wired connection is going to be plenty stable. If you're building something bigger, you will typically want a device to separate out that Wi-Fi and that routing capability, just because it gives you flexibility. But that's usually not necessary until you get either really nerdy or just really persnickety.
Go ahead, Mickey, and then Jason.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone here will tell you, like, wired always over anything wireless for network traffic. But in terms of mesh, there's mesh systems that would allow you to use an Ethernet backbone, and those, in my experience, have worked pretty reliably.
All I'll say is that if I care about my signal on Zoom, on a real-time synchronous video is one of the harder things for a network to do, because if there's any hiccups, you lose frames, you lose sync, you lose all kinds of other things. And so it is a very unforgiving network, protocol. And if I care about what I'm doing, I will not use wireless to do it. Steve?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
No, I was just going to say kind of the same thing. But the other thing is, when you're dealing with mesh, like, I think it was Michael mentioned Wi-Fi 6, the new Eero Pro 6, they're also tri-band. So you've got an upstream and a downstream, and you've got a separate channel actually for intermesh system control and routing. That can help so you can maximize it. But again, there is no better solution than wired.
Copper. Jason?
Yeah, what I was going to add to that is sometimes when people mention mesh, if they're talking about the lower end ones, you'll have like your main Wi-Fi base station, and it's just wirelessly connecting to another one that the clients connect to. Wi-Fi is half duplex communication, not full duplex like a wire. So from the first station to the next one, you're reducing by a quarter at the other end.
It's an extender, yeah.
Yeah, an extender, or some people call it mesh that way too. Yeah.
Michael, and then Peter.
Yeah. If you, depending on how you set up your mesh network as well, overcrowding, this is true of non-mesh networks too, but overcrowding is a real possibility. And so you don't necessarily want to go into a network and be like, hey, Eeros at $100-$150 a piece, not too bad. Let me get 4 of them instead of 2 or 3. Modern Eeros are pretty good, but that can also reduce the performance of your network. Mm-hmm. And so aside from the environment that you're in, if you're in a big city, you might be a little out of luck, but reducing the number of mesh points can also really improve the performance of the network.
Peter?
Well, 2 things. This is not the good panel to ask the question of in some respects, because as you discovered on Saturday, none of us have a standard network, a normal network. But my Eero Pro 6, it's kind of halfway in between what you were describing, Michael, is every one of them, and there are 3 in my house, and my house is big enough to need 3 of them to get full coverage, is hardwired into my gigabit backbone, hardwired. And they mesh perfectly. I know, because I can do handoffs on my phones and on my wireless devices, but it's only used for iPad, iPhone, and about 20 things sitting in this home office that are all wireless.
Mm-hmm. Right. Ronnie?
Mickey, I know you've mentioned the Unify Ubiquity edge routers before, but I'm a huge fan of the Unify access points. So I have several of them installed here. And when I did a Wi-Fi scan, there's an app called Wi-Fi Scanner for Mac, and it shows you the frequency. There you go, Tucker. And so it used to be that 5 gigahertz would give me, I wouldn't be colliding with any other neighboring houses. But now, with Verizon Fios and Comcast Xfinity, they're all just blasting out 5 gigahertz as well. And so with the Unify devices, there's some radar channels. They call it DFS, so dynamic frequency selection. I had to look it up because I didn't remember, but literally nobody is using those channels around me. And so I have several access points only using 5 gigahertz, and they each have a channel, a radar channel or DFS, and I'm not sharing it with anybody except for the devices in my house. So I love Unify access points.
Next question.
Andy Dolph of Durham, New Hampshire is back with thoughts on when to use Qlab and when to use PlayoutB, assuming I have both. I've been using Qlab so far, but wondering if there are times when PlayoutB might make more sense.
My PlayoutB, as you can see, is still cooking after 2 days. I think that for me, I think a PlayoutB is a great to do exactly what I did. I'm cutting to something that is just filling time that I'm there. It's not necessarily mission critical. I think it's still early on. It's really cool, and it's great to have extra players that have time lapse or have schedule or have those types of things. And once you get it rolling, I think it's perfect as just a cutaway. Oh, I need to cut away to something. We all need those things in production where I can cut to some footage that is not really live but fills the time, and not having to use a whole hyperdeck for that is awesome. In mission critical production, I probably still stay with Qlab. Peter, you're muted.
I had a long conversation with Victor about this because we were having this discussion about Ecamm, why he switched from Ecamm to Qlab. Well, I stayed with Memo Live because we're all using Macs, but it ended up because he was timing it to his music. He was using Qlab time to music. So I can't, so you're actually timing a show, not like something like here. I mean, here I could so go over here and send in a sequence either from Memo Live or from my Atem, and there it is. But it's pure manual.
Yep, Mickey, and then Taylor.
Yeah, I think like for just very like simple playouts, PlayoutB would be fine for, again, like I haven't tried it, so I don't know the reliability of it, but Jonas is very responsive. But one plus side with using the PlayoutB is you could trigger the playback straight from your switcher, your Atem switcher. But if you need more automation tools, then Qlab is the way to go. And also, more codec support as well.
Yeah, good. Taylor?
I use PlayoutB a lot of time for loop video, like standby loop animation and that type of thing. But everybody else took what I was going to say.
Yeah, perfect for that. Yeah. Tucker, last word.
It's just a super fancy still store, basically. It's just such a great add-on to the Atem.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
John Pewitt, Huntersville, says, what's the best way to know when a cage has been released for the Blackmagic Design 6K Pro?
Go ahead, Mickey.
I just checked the Facebook of, if you use Facebook, check their page. A few days ago, I think 2 or 3 days ago, they posted a picture of a 6K Pro and saying a new toys coming out this week.
Oh, there you go. Bill?
I was just going to say that, there are companies, Small Rig, Zacuto, that specialize in cages, and I'm sure they got a little bit of advanced and notice to start tooling up, and I'm sure they'll be coming out pretty quickly.
Next question.
Philip Tesoro, Brisbane, Australia is up next, and Philip says, Tucker just mentioned TP-Link power line. I have two sets of this, but it turns out that where I need to get that power line to the back room is on a different power circuit than the rest of the network. What's the best way to bridge the power circuits for network connectivity, and is this safe?
All right, go ahead, Peter.
Call an licensed electrician. That is 220 coming into a house, and what you've got is half of it going into one part, half it going the other. Do not try this at home by yourself.
you might have to have somebody try it, but you shouldn't try it at home.
I am an electrical engineer and I studied power engineering in college. I am not a licensed electrician. If I screw it up, I pay for it. If the electrician screws it up, the insurance pays for it.
Right. Tucker?
Yeah, I've dealt with this on like 3-phase distros and things. Because I don't want to deal with the ramifications of bridging circuits like that, I just wind up running a second unit and doing an actual network jump and then running. So,
yep. Next question.
Jeremy Horn in the Bay Area, that's all he says, is do any office hours folks have experience with Qtigo? A client would like to use this platform to stream a concert for their event. Anything to be aware of or look out for? Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I was looking at their webpage and it doesn't look like they do streaming so much as they do auctions and other fundraising events. So it looks like you would need to leverage something like Zoom and then conduct the auctions through Qtego.
Yeah,
That's
it
what
definitely
looked like to me.
It looks to me like if they say that they do that, it's not their area of strength. Like it's not what they specialize in. So be super careful. There's a lot of people pivoting to online events, and they often get themselves into the water.
Come
that's
on,
much
they have a
deeper.
webcam and a laptop. What's the problem?
Exactly. Next question.
Robert Harvey's of Fairfax says, any photographers have experience with the black and white mode on BenQ monitors? Helpful or a gimmick?
Go ahead, TJ.
While I haven't used that specifically on that monitor, my question would be, how do you know how they are converting to black and white? When I convert a photo to black and white, I am not just always using luminance. Sometimes I'm doing color channels. So I'm doing something more red, something more blue, something more green. So every photo requires different finessing than just a straight luminance
I think it's just the
cut.
display. I think it's just how it's displaying it. Yeah, I agree with you. Creating the black and white is definitely something that is and there's some great plugins. Who makes the is it Nick Effects that makes the really good?
Yeah,
really good
the Silver Effects Pro or something like that, I think it's called.
So there's definitely how to create it, but the question is what does the monitor do as far as displaying? Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, as I said, I don't know what the monitor's doing. I mean, I guess I was just looking it up because I haven't used their monitors, but it's a single button that basically just it seems like it removes the color from the screen. And I guess the advantage would be you could quickly preview an entire window at a glance of what it would look like in black and white. That seems like I guess a potentially useful thing for me if I need to preview a bunch of photos. In Lightroom, you could select all, apply a filter and a few keyboard shortcuts and create versions if you really need to. And personally for me, monitor features like this are gimmicks because I usually want to turn them off, calibrate them if I can, and keep them consistent. I'll also mention if you are looking for a shortcut like that, Mac OS has a built-in accessibility feature to do black and white mode and just drain the color, and you have a little bit of configuration. So you could assign a hotkey to that if you want the same effect and you're on a Mac.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, like even NEC, my NEC next to me, I can go into a mode for Adobe RGB or sRGB or black and white. It's the same type of a thing, even though it's not BenQ. And I'm with Michael. To me, it's more of a gimmick. I can easily pull it into software and convert it to black and white very quickly, or I can do a print proof in Photoshop or in Lightroom to a particular black and white printer to see what I'm getting. I wouldn't use it myself.
There you go. All right. Well, we have made it through yet another evening session. I think this is the best one so far. Really, really, really good group. So thank you. Thanks for everybody, for the panelists. Great answers, great conversation, and good questions. It's funny. I'm always like, well, we don't have any questions. And then I say we don't have any questions, and then it fills up. I'm like, well, where were those a second ago? Why didn't we just put those in at the beginning? I'm still trying to figure that behavior out. Are people holding back on us, or did they just come up with those anyway? So if you did, great work putting those in. So
can we get the theme music just as a?
I just asked that in Connor.
All right,
nice.
fine. Be that way.
Mickey is the source, isn't he?
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
Are we doing a post show?
Yeah. Stretch.
Yeah. So this is the part where we talk, and we do the best we can. This is what we call stretching. So we're actually stretching by talking about stretching, which is a thing. To
meta stretch.
While talking about stretch, we're talking about a meta stretch, and we're trying to figure out how many times can we say stretch while we're stretching and continuing that conversation and trying to make it look like an actual sentence when it's really just kind of a run-on. But yeah, I can expand on it. But what I really want to do is stretch. You know, like that.
But
That's
could
the
you
key there.
define
Is the yeah. So and
Right, here's how you invoke it. Will turn,
exactly.
scream, will turn, scream.
You got it, Mickey? You got it? Or is it, yeah, go ahead. There we go. All right. So we will be back bright and early. Can you believe we're starting this again in 8 hours? 8 hours. I got to go to bed. I got to sleep at least 4 of those. All right. And Tucker is partying. All right. See you, everybody. Great work.
It's the first show I've been on where they played the song.
Steve.